Celebrating 49 years on the air, award-winning Farm Week is a production of Mississippi State University Extension.
Today on Farm Week, farm income very much on the minds of producers. Plus, proposed changes could put more money in the pockets of biofuels producers, but questions remain. In Southern gardening this Valentine's Day, wear your heart on your sleeve with bleeding heart vines. And in our feature, the Blueberry Blues, using machines to pick for fresh harvest, Farm Week starts right now.
Hello everyone, I'm Zach Ashmore.
And I'm Mike Russell. Great to have you with us again here on Farm Week. Still on the minds of many, tariffs hanging around the necks of producers looking for markets for their goods. The bipartisan group sent a letter to the 4 Ag Committee leaders warning about the state of the farm economy. Peter Tubbs has more.
While fourth quarter GDP recorded surprising growth, economic data suggests this is an economy that lacks direction. The Mid-America Business Conditions Index found that tariffs have reduced the value of goods being imported into Mid-America states, but retaliatory tariffs by trading partners has also reduced the value of goods being exported by the states in the survey. Tariffs on imported goods are paid by importers and American consumers. The Mid-America Business Conditions Index remains below growth neutral for the 4th time in the past 5 months, despite climbing 2 points to 49.6. With GDP growth driven by huge investments in IT, AI, and data center buildouts, the rest of the economy is lagging.
Hiring was not good. Our hiring index, or the employment gauge, was at 47.2. Now that is up from December's 44.0, but still not good. It's still below growth neutral. It's 10 straight months that it's been below growth neutral. The national number, likewise, is we're mimicking the national number, which has also been below growth neutral for most of 2025. The theme here is we're creating output, GDP, but we're not creating a lot of jobs.
Additionally, a predicted $4 billion drop in 2026 net farm income from 2025 is limiting the economic outlook for many parts of rural America.
Recently, the president vowed support for year-round E15, which will make corn growers in Mississippi happy. The Treasury Department offered more details on credits aimed at increasing demand for biofuels. David Miller has more.
On the heels of last week's disappointment for the ethanol industry and U.S. corn farmers, the Treasury Department has proposed changes to an existing rule that could increase the flow of biofuels and put more money in the pockets of ethanol producers and farmers.
We finally have a proposed rule that begins to provide those details and some of the clarification around exactly what ethanol producers need to do to claim this tax incentive.
The proposed changes for the Clean Fuel Production Tax Credit, known as 45Z, include what will be considered a qualified sale for each gallon of ethanol and tax credits of $1 per gallon for ethanol not used for aviation and $1.75 per gallon for biofuels used as sustainable aviation fuel. It also includes cutting the provision that had previously been used as part of the calculation for carbon emissions that came from biofuel feedstocks planted on land that had been converted to row crops.
It is really going to help them reinvest in their operations and add new equipment, add new technology, continue progressing toward lowering the carbon intensity of the fuel. And the reason that's important is because there are markets around the world, fuel markets around the world and here in the United States, that are requiring the use of lower carbon fuels.
In July, President Trump's signature on the One Big Beautiful Bill extended 45Z for 2 years and restricted feedstocks to the U.S., Canada, and Mexico. It also retained previous inroads made during the Biden administration, allowing for CO2 recovered from biofuels production to receive credit for use in enhanced oil recovery. However, questions remain on how greenhouse gas emissions and the energy needed to brew a gallon of ethanol will be calculated.
So in order to measure or quantify the carbon intensity of the biofuel, you have to use what's called the GREET model, which is essentially a carbon intensity calculator that is published by the Department of Energy. And we don't have that new version of the GREET model available yet.
Comments on the proposed rule changes will be heard at a meeting scheduled for May 28th.
In Mississippi, biofuels crops rank high. Soybeans are the number 3 commodity at more than $1 billion in value annually, grown on nearly 3,000 farms in the state. Corn is number 5, producing $619 million last year on nearly 1,500 farms. This according to the Mississippi Department of Agriculture.
Here's a Southern gardening story perfect for Valentine's Day. Bleeding heart vines aren't a political statement. They're colorful, non-invasive vines that blend well with everything else in your yard and enhance garden health. Here's Eddie with more.
Are you looking for a gift for your plant-loving Valentine? Consider giving them a bleeding heart vine for Valentine's Day. The red and white bleeding heart vines are stunning tropical climbers known for their vibrant flowers that symbolize love and passion, making them an exceptional choice for Valentine's Day. The red bleeding heart vine features vivid red tubular flowers surrounded by contrasting pink papery bracts, creating a dramatic and eye-catching display. This fast-growing vine can reach 10 to 15 feet when supported, making it perfect for trellises, pergolas, or hanging baskets. Similarly, the white bleeding heart vine is equally impressive, with bright red blooms enclosed in white bracts, providing a striking floral display. These vines bloom prolifically in fall and winter, creating cascading clusters of flowers that attract butterflies and hummingbirds, adding life and beauty to any setting. Their heart-shaped blooms and lush foliage make them a meaningful and romantic gift, symbolizing enduring love and affection. Ideal for growing indoors or outdoors in warm climates, zones 9 through 11, they can also be potted and brought indoors in cooler areas, ensuring year-round enjoyment. Red and white bleeding heart vines are a unique and thoughtful Valentine's gift that grows more beautiful with care, much like love itself. I'm Eddie Smith, and I look forward to seeing you next time on Southern Gardening.
We'll take a break right here, but don't go away. Coming up on our Farm Week feature, blueberries are Mississippi's largest fruit crop, but managing the cost of labor isn't easy. We head to Oregon, where harvesting for fresh fruit is normally done by hand. But for a farm that hires nearly 600 seasonal workers to pick and process, the cost is staggering. Not far away, though, they've created blueberry trees that are more machine-friendly. How's that working out? The Blueberry Blues, coming up on Farm Week.
I believe in people and their hopes, their aspirations and their faith, and their right to make their own plans and arrive at their own decisions, and their ability and power to enlarge their lives and plan for the happiness of those they love. I believe that education, of which extension work is an essential part, is basic in stimulating individual initiative, self-determination, and leadership. That these are the keys to democracy, and that people, when given facts they understand, will act not only in their self-interest, but also in the interest of society. Because I believe these things, I am an extension professional.
I believe in people and their hopes, their aspirations, and their faith. I believe in intellectual freedom to search for and present the truth without bias and with courteous tolerance toward the views of others. I believe that education is a lifelong process and the greatest university is the home, that my success as a teacher is proportional to those qualities of mind and spirit that give me welcome entrance to the homes of the families I serve. Because I believe these things, I am an extension professional.
Time for the market report. Prices still going up, farm income not so much.
That's right, Mike. We're going to get into that and what's moving the markets. But first, the numbers. What were the week's biggest gains and losses? And then the USDA released their farm income forecast. We talked to an extension economist about it. And finally, row crop prices making moves. What's the cause? So, markets closed, still trending up with row crop split. Let's take a look. The week's biggest gain, soybeans up 51 cents, nearly a 5% increase from the previous week. The week's biggest loss, cotton, down over 2 cents. That's nearly a 3.5% decrease from the previous week. So the USDA ERS recently released its annual farm sector income and finances forecast. Included are numbers reflecting farm income from 2025 and predictions for this year as well. I spoke with MSU Extension economist Dr. Kevin Kim about this report and its implications.
First, the ERS substantially lowered their net farm income expectation for 2025. In their early report released in September 2025, they estimated that the net farm income for 2025 will increase almost 40% relative to 2024. But now, with this new report that just got released last week, the ERS is now estimating that the net farm income will only go up by half of what they initially anticipated. For 2026, actually now they estimate that the net farm income level will go down for the overall agricultural sector. And of course, we want to look into cash receipts depending on production. Now, for the corn producers, the ERS estimates that So while corn receipt is expected to increase slightly by 3%, soybean cash receipt is expected to remain on the same level. Now, for the rice producer cash receipt, we are expecting 12.5% decrease for the rice producers, and this will be triggered by lower price and lower quantities sold. For the cotton, lint, cash receipt, we are expecting a tiny decrease in cash receipt. So overall livestock cash receipt is expected to go down by 6%, but when we look into different production, the stories are pretty different. For the cattle producers, actually cash receipts are expected to increase by 3%. A big decrease is expected for chicken eggs. Actually, if you look at the numbers, ERS estimates that chicken egg cash receipt will decrease by 66%, which is a very big margin. For the broiler producers, cash receipt is expected to sort of remain on the same level. The government payment is anticipated to substantially increase this year. So last year, for 2025, ARC and PLC payments combined, the total government payment from these programs were about $3 billion. For 2026, we expect these payments to go up to $15 billion under the One Big Beautiful Big Act. So there will be a substantial government subsidy.
In our row report this week, grains making an impact in the markets, specifically soybeans and corn. So, what's the cause of these moves? Analyst Christy Van-Anchizet characterizes it as global trade issues affecting domestic prices.
Over the last 2 or 3 weeks, I think people have decided that China met their 12 million metric ton. We haven't really seen any private sales lately, and that they just kind of assumed, hey, beans got their run, let's step away. You also had managed money really step away from the market as well. And so I think people just kind of gave up on soybeans. So as soon as you started to see that information, you saw those buyers start to come in. And then I think it was that FOMO, right? The fear of missing out, that people all of a sudden jumped in and they said, hey, I don't want to sell my beans too low. Like, if they're going to come in here and buy these, I need to be part of this. And then managed money really was flat. And so you had them jump in. I think it was that spiral that led it higher. And it has been a while since I have had a wild day in the grain markets. And when it started to creep and then it jumped from pretty much 30 to 50 cents higher, and then before you know it, it was back down to 25 cents. And you just had a lot of people saying, hey, I want to be part of this movement. And I think a lot of marketing got done, which was a smart thing to do, in my opinion. So we actually moved to 100% marketed in old crop soybeans off this move. We were 90, so it was only 10%, but we decided to move on the rest of them. And we really went with either sales if you had a decent basis. Otherwise, I really like April and May puts. You get a little bit of carry into the situation. And April is actually very reasonably priced because it doesn't get you to the March 31st crop report. So due to that, you have a little bit of that lower volatility, lower price action, lower interest because people want to see the report. I don't think you need to see the report for downside protection in soybeans. I could be wrong on that. You never know. But I think the writing on the wall is that we're not going to see the bean acres and that we're going to have to do something about it. It was really nice to see follow through again today after that sell off initially from the high. But really, when I look at beans, I have really hard concerns about them buying another 8 million metric ton. So you're asking them to buy with Brazil having fresh soybeans on the way.
And that's it for a deeper look into the markets. Mike?
Thanks, Zach. In Mississippi, blueberries are the state's largest fruit crop. They're grown on more than 2,000 acres in the Magnolia State. Nationwide, the Pacific Northwest leads in blueberry production, but labor costs could limit expansion unless technology can help. Colleen Bradford-Krantz has more on that.
In 1974, emergency room doctor Paul Norris and his wife Sandy started farming for one reason: their daughters.
Wanted them to be able to be fairly self-sufficient, how to repair things, how to fix things. I just don't think raising them in a city, they're missing some experiences they need.
Once the family's farm in southern Oregon's Umpqua Valley was established with grazing livestock, sugar beets, and alfalfa, Paul Norris wanted to try something new. An extension agent told him, however, that his plan to add 5 acres of blueberries wouldn't pan out.
It was kind of like waving a red flag in front of a bull. So I think now we have pretty significant planting of blueberries.
That significant planting is now about 700 acres of blueberries. That scale allowed the farm to eventually become a direct exporter of the fruit, first to Japan and later elsewhere in Asia and to Canada. Oregon producers together now raise 165 million pounds of cultivated blueberries, second only to Washington.
We got into it kind of in the infancy, and it's been fun to develop the program. We helped fund some of the initial research on the antioxidant aspects of blueberries, and it's fun to see the popularity grow.
When his daughter Ellie Norris joined the family business full-time in 2014, she found she loved the challenge of helping run a farm. But she soon faced a key problem in an otherwise healthy industry: labor.
We only do hand harvest right now. We are, I think, one of the last dinosaurs that only do hand harvest.
The family felt that hand harvesting was important because they primarily sell fresh versus frozen blueberries. Quality is more difficult to preserve with fresh. Their customers, especially those in the growing market of South Korea, expect large, unblemished blueberries.
They do get bruising if they do hit something with a certain amount of force. It's more than you realize. They look okay, but there is going to be bruising under the skin, and that will cause the fruit to decay faster.
And although machine harvesters do exist, the family has moved cautiously, watching as the equipment that works nicely for blueberries that will be frozen are gradually improved for fresh blueberries.
We, for the first time this season, brought in a team with a machine to harvest for fresh. And I was impressed with the quality that came out of that. It is something that we are dipping our toes into. It's not something that we are going to jump headfirst into.
But the cost of labor, Norris Farms pays a minimum of about $18 an hour, and the availability of workers is a growing concern. Additionally, Oregon now requires overtime pay for farm workers if hours exceed 48 per week. That will drop to 40 hours by 2027. The family hires 450 workers to pick from June through September, with another 130 working in their processing center.
If I told you how expensive it is to have hand harvest, I think your hair would fall out. That is a large bill to pay, and it's only going to get more expensive.
About 160 miles to the north, on the outskirts of Portland, Oregon State horticulture professor Wei Yang is developing a blueberry tree at the school's North Willamette Research and Extension Center. Most blueberries are naturally a bush. Yang is grafting the rootstock of a variety of wild blueberry called sparkleberry onto the northern highbush variety that Oregon farms, such as Norris Farms, grows.
You're switching from bush type to a tree type. It's much easier to manage. Harvesting-wise, weed control, nutritional irrigation, it will be completely a different system. If you're using machine harvesting for fresh operations, it could benefit your operation.
The goal? To allow machine harvesters to more effectively capture blueberries by encircling a single trunk rather than multiple stems, which means fewer berries lost on the ground.
Currently, if the regular bush, you'll be losing up to 25%. Better designs, better production systems, trainings, hopefully we can reduce that, up to lower than 10%, which is comparable maybe compared to hand harvesting.
The University of Florida has worked with Yang in recent years to also test southern highbush blueberries as a tree. Yang said that a plant that works more smoothly with machines could help solve the labor problem and keep U.S. fresh berry growers competitive.
Cost of labor, harvesting labor is increasing every year. And also the competition from foreign countries, especially blueberry producing countries like Peru in recent years. We have to, looking at our harvesting cost.
Yang is working to help manufacturers find the ideal design that also works for fresh.
We're still using the same idea, same machine, but we want to improve the machine where it can cause less bruising damage, so it can store longer.
Ellie Norris says she saw promising enough results last year that, in light of the cost of labor, the farm will try machine harvesting again next year.
It's still penciling out now, but like every farmer will tell you, it's getting more and more narrow. Like, you're getting squeezed on this side and you're getting squeezed on this side.
Farmers constantly squeezed one way or another. Well, next week, another example of that, an encore from our series On the Farm. We head to Doddsville, Mississippi. There we meet Ed and Ben Pentecost, two brothers who have farmed catfish for nearly 40 years.
But now it's getting harder to keep up with the high cost of running their 600-acre fish farm. As a result, they wonder if they can cope with the stress or should close down the operation altogether.
On the Farm, an encore special next time on Farm Week. Before we go, if you were watching the Super Bowl over the weekend, you saw some great commercials. One of them featured a real-life barley farmer from North Dakota. Reporter Jody Kurtzman has more on the budding TV star.
Budweiser's Super Bowl ad features one of the iconic Budweiser Clydesdales, a bald eagle, and a North Dakota farmer. That's Brian Franzen. He's a fourth-generation farmer from Cole Harbor.
My great-grandfather emigrated over from Sweden to Cole Harbor, North Dakota.
Brian still farms that land. He was harvesting barley when Budweiser called.
It meant a lot to me that Budweiser wanted to get a real farmer, a real barley farmer from the plains of North Dakota out to shoot a Super Bowl commercial here. I had no idea what to expect out here, but to be able to be here on set and experience something like this for the first time was just kind of mind-blowing.
Brian only gets about a second of airtime. Blink and you might miss him, but he hopes it might be enough to remind Americans just how important farmers are.
The title of the commercial is American Icons, and what better icon than a Clydesdale, a bald eagle, and a farmer who literally works with this American soil to make his living.
We're so excited to be able to feature a real barley farmer in our Super Bowl commercial this year. It's really an opportunity for us to celebrate and acknowledge all the people who have worked the last 150 years to produce, deliver, and enjoy this great tasting, high quality American beer.
Brian says while being in a Super Bowl commercial was a pretty amazing experience, he's not leaving his farm for Hollywood anytime soon.
I think I'll stick to the plains of North Dakota.
Love that shot with the winged horse there at the end.
Very Pegasus-like.
Yes, exactly.
Remember, if you missed a story, look for past episodes of Farm Week on our website at farmweek.tv.
And don't forget to follow us on Facebook and YouTube. See you next week. Thanks for watching.